And we're back for some NBA observations right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast. It's Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much for joining us once again. Make sure you like and subscribe, all that good stuff, so you can go ahead and help out the channel. It truly does. That's what YouTube tells me anyways. So go ahead, like and subscribe to get the latest notifications on when we go live or the latest show comes up for you on the Lakers Fast Break Podcast. So he is here. He is back. And I'll tell you what, it's been great talking to him into the new year. He is still with us each and every week, and I'm so grateful for that. It is, of course, the man behind so many good things at the Suave Report and also as well, the New Century Press. Indeed, it is Calif Poncy. Calif, great to have you back talking the NBA once again.
Yeah, it was really pretty interesting last week. Kind of a lot of results I'm sure we maybe will briefly touch on here. I think this Rockets slide is pretty interesting, although a bit of a statistical outlier with I saw something, they are shooting the worst five. They're in the middle of the worst 5-game shooting stretch, like on modernized volume from 3 ever. So that'll lead to some losses, but no, we have a pretty interesting show today, I think, and I'm ready to get down to it.
Absolutely. I will just say this with the Rockets. It was interesting. They started off, they don't shoot many threes as other teams do, but they were highly efficient in it. And once it started to tail off as far as their effectiveness from there, well, as the Lakers would tell you, it makes it much harder to do other things out there. But I was figuring their offensive rebounding prowess, which was at a record pace to begin the season, would make up for that. But as we're seeing, there's a lot of problems, and I'm not sure that a traditional point guard, is going to fix all the problems right now in Houston.
No, I mean, this was kind of always the concern with them, to me and others. So Kevin Durant is obviously one of the most efficient high volume scorers that's ever played, and that includes 3-point range, obviously. But he's never been a high volume 3-point shooter. It's just not how he plays. And for all the detriments that Jalen Green has, one of my just least favorite kind of player archetypes in the NBA that he kind of is the poster child of, he had 3-point volume. And then their second 3-point volume guy was probably Fred VanVleet, who obviously is going to be out for the season with an ACL injury. And so you kind of just look at their team, and the question is where they may be efficient. Like we talked about, like they were making everything early in the season, but their attempts were the second lowest in the league. I think they're still the second lowest in the league. And come big games, there's just some math trade-off that maybe they figured out where you just kind of have to shoot a certain amount of threes, but they just don't have anyone who other than Kevin Durant, who is never going to do this, that I trust to just have like an 8 3-point attempt game. Like I watched both their Portland games. I watched the Sacramento game. We're going to have a segment later, I think, about like maybe some of our most underwhelming players this season. And I love Amen Thompson. I think he's going to be a great player in the NBA for a long time, but his just complete and total lack of development in his shooting prowess is pretty concerning for the level of player I think he could be. Sengun had a ridiculous game to open the season where it looked like maybe he had made like a Jokic-esque 3-point jump. Again, he had, I think, maybe 5 or 6 made threes against OKC in that double overtime game. And then that seems to be kind of an aberration. He's just not a heavy volume 3-point shooter. And so we'll see. I mean, Dorian Finney-Smith is coming back, and he was always going to be kind of an important part of this. But other than that, you're just looking at a lot of guys. You're really relying on Reed Shepherd, and he's a second-year player who has his moments, but he's a young player who didn't play a lot his rookie year, and you have championship aspirations in Houston, rightfully so. And so I don't know that a traditional point guard is honestly what I'd be looking for. That's been kind of the common take with them, is that they need an organizer a little bit. But I honestly think if I were them, I'd just be trying to go get some chuckers, just people to go out there and shoot through. Like, it's going to lead to some inefficient games, but covering OKC for these last couple of years, Lou Dort is a player that has his moments where you're like, oh my God, how is he playing right now? He cannot hit the broadside of a barn, but he never stops shooting. He always takes his threes. He'll go through stretches when he shoots 20% for weeks, but you need guys like that. You just need volume shooters in the modern NBA, and Houston just doesn't really have any.
What about a player like Cam Thomas for them? They're coming off the bench now with Brooklyn. Obviously, you saw that contract situation that they had with ultimately him having to, bet on himself. And right now, the bet is not 100% great because he came back from injury and he finds himself on the short end of the stick right now as the guy no longer coming off the starting lineup. He's coming off the bench in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking up here right now to see what to me, it's just all about 3-point. So their ability, I mean, but this season, I guess he's really stepped back his 3-point volume a little bit. He's at 5 a game, which would be good for Houston, but he was at 8. But yeah, basically 8 last year. So if he could maybe get back into that, I think it maybe makes some sense. But I just think his skill set really, to me, comes with I think my video's being a little weird here. His skill set to me really comes with his inside the arc scoring, his ability to get to that mid-range jumper. And I just don't think with Kevin Durant on your team, they don't need another guy to get to mid. They kind of have guys who can get points. I just think, I don't know that he'd be available. I think maybe if you're Houston, we're going to do a little trade segment later too. I think maybe you get in to see if you can maybe sneak your way into this inevitable Golden State move and maybe try and get a Buddy Hield. I think someone like that makes a ton of sense for Houston. I just kind of think a spot-up shooter is what this team needs, and a spot-up shooter who's not afraid to shoot and has shown that they can play. Because there's lots of guys who will shoot, but it's hard to play those guys in the playoffs sometimes. Buddy Hield has shown that he can play and be really impactful in a playoff series like he was last year.
Once again, it is Calif Poncy. Please go ahead and support him today at the New Century Press and also the Suave Report. It's me, Gerald Glassford's NBA Observations. Truly appreciate it. So where do you want to go first, my friend? I mean, the league is always buzzing with good things. Of course, we have a delayed talk on expansion that we still need to discuss. Talked about the most disappointing players so far this season. The All-Stars. Everybody's picking their All-Star ballots and all that good stuff and all that. But where do you want to go first? Because I think if you start with Ja, we have to get into the most disappointing players so far this season. It's like they're joined at the hip right now.
So I guess I'll leave it up to you. Do you want to go negative first or positive first?
Let's go negative first. Although when we're talking about the All-Star game, is that really a positive anymore?
I don't know that the format's positive, but I'll say it's still a celebration of the league's best players in one way or another. So.
Fair enough. Well, let's go obviously with the news that came up last week, of course. Shams Charania putting out there that officially the word has been put out by the Memphis Grizzlies that Ja Morant is available to you in a trade. So start those calls. But the problem is, as we will go ahead further into the most disappointing players so far this season, he is probably at or near the top of everyone's list, because despite a couple of games where he has looked like his old self, for the most part, his athleticism is not as there as it once was. He's not getting in the paint as he once was. He seems disinterested both on and off the court at times, which is bad for your defense. And his shooting, well, Calif, I think you could probably put it up from 3 better right now than Ja Morant.
I can't completely rule it out, which is problematic, which is about as problematic as anything. Ja was one I kind of held on to a little bit longer than I probably should have. And I think that I never thought that he was maybe. I think the trade of Ja entered everyone's kind of head maybe last season. This seems like this Memphis Ja thing just is weird and kind of going to be problematic. And I never thought he'd maybe fetch some huge return, but the Trae Young thing I think is kind of an eye opener for what this type of player is going to net back for teams. I was texting with some of my friends at the Suave Report, and I just kind of had a thought, and it was like, is this era we know so much more about basketball than we've ever known, just in terms of advanced analytics, the type of players that actually are conducive to winning. It's really catching up, I think, statistically a little bit with baseball. Now, hopefully, it doesn't quite go that far, but I think it's right there. And I texted, I wonder if this kind of era is the death of this like high usage, low impact guard being like a franchise centerpiece. So because I think all these guys are at different levels. They're all so the early 2000s and late night, like you had Steve Francis and you had Stephon Marbury and you had at the high end of it, like Allen Iverson, who obviously went to a finals. So that this is not to disparage what he did there to go get smacked by your all-time Lakers there. But that kind of player. And then in the last generation, we kind of saw it. I think Russell Westbrook, as much as I appreciate what his career was, is kind of the evolutionary version of this. Super high usage, maybe gives you a decent floor because he played with so much more energy than like a Trae Young plays with. And I think Ja Morant was kind of in that vein early in his career where he just had this radiant play style that was just so attractive to even teammates at the time. And that's just kind of gone by the wayside. But I mean, I think that a trade needs to happen here for both sides, kind of like Atlanta, where Memphis has a good young infrastructure of players that they can really, I think, if they move into this Cedric Howard era, I'm not the biggest Jaren Jackson guy, but he's clearly a really good basketball player. I can't argue that. Edie's been better than anyone thought. They have some interesting young pieces. They stumbled into Cam Spencer. I mean, I think it's best if they move on just for both sides, but I think the return's going to be really low. And I actually had some extra time today, and I came up with 4 fake trades that fit the aprons. I used the Spot Track trade finder, so it fit the aprons. These all are mathematically possible.
But go for it, my friend. I mean, I'm inundated all day long. And when I say all day long, I mean all day long with people sending trades to me. So by all means.
Okay, so I had my first one. There's one in here that's pretty off the wall that I don't think really has a chance to happen, but it worked and I thought it was interesting. And it's a team I usually bring up for guys like this. Mm-hmm. But the first one, we've all kind of seen, I think anyone who pays attention has seen this Milwaukee tie that everyone just kind of maybe wants to make. Maybe it's real, maybe it's not. But Milwaukee's obviously desperate. I think right now it seems like Giannis is probably heading to an offseason trade request, despite the fact he, for some reason, said he was never going to request a trade when he's kind of been soft launching a trade for about 6 months now.
Yeah.
So my first trade was Milwaukee gets Ja and Jock Landale, and they send Kyle Kuzma, Bobby Portis, Andre Jackson, and a 2030 Portland swap that I think they have the worst end of from the Damian Lillard trade. So as you can see, like, I think Ja there is interesting. I think that him and Giannis could honestly be a pretty concerning duo just in terms of their ability to space the floor. You'd be really
if Lillard and Giannis didn't work, is Morant a better option? Even with an older Lillard, excuse me?
No, it's not. I just think that in this case, like, the real price that you're paying is Bobby Portis. Getting off Kyle Kuzma is it's a positive thing for the Bucks. Andre Jackson, he was really good in college. He kind of really hasn't really translated other than his horrific appearance in the dunk contest. That's like the most notable thing that he's done in the NBA. And then one worst of Portland Milwaukee swap. I mean, like, what's that? That's not. I mean, even if the Bucks are bad in 2030, I kind of like what the Blazers are doing. Like, I don't think the Blazers are going to be terrible in 2030. I don't think you're looking at anything crazy with that. So I don't think it would work. I think Giannis is headed to a different team this summer, basically no matter what they do in Milwaukee, barring something something falls into their lap. But I just think the price would be so low, which is kind of going to be a common denominator here. And similar to Washington with Trae Young, where we were maybe a little bit on different ends of that last week, where I thought the price would be so unbelievably low. And you're the Wizards, who their cap space is going to be used to kind of buy picks with bad contracts that you absorb anyway. I think maybe taking a shot on someone who maybe isn't the most conducive to winning, but is clearly a very talented guy in Trae Young made sense. And that's kind of what ended up happening. I mean, a hilariously bad trade package for someone who has the accolades that Trae Young has in his career. And so I think Ja's going to be a similar thing, but I do think that, like Atlanta, Memphis is in a place where they kind of have to trade him. It seems like locker, and that's even more combustible because Trae Young really seemed pretty, in his interview with Washington, really seemed pretty positive about the Hawks organization. He said, I thought it was time for both. I wanted to, instead of leaving maybe and going somewhere else, I wanted to be able to net them something back. Like that seemed like he really was a pretty positive influence. At least he seems like a good enough guy. I don't want to say Ja's a bad guy because we don't know, but he obviously has his weird off-court stuff. And he definitely does not seem like someone who's going to want to do that organization any favors anytime soon to me, just based off of the feel around it. So I just think you got to get off him. But what do you think in Milwaukee, other than you don't think it'd work with Giannis, which I kind of agree with?
Again, if it didn't work with Lillard and him, I just don't think, Morant, especially with the kind of shooter that he is, not even just from three, just from distance right now, it's not good at all. I just don't know how it opens up the floor for Giannis to do his thing. I think right now, if you ask me between who's a better point guard fit for Giannis, Ryan Rollins or Ja Morant, I would choose Ryan Rollins every single time.
Well, that's something I know is in a lot of these kind of fake trades, Ryan Rollins is in them going to Memphis. And if I'm Milwaukee, I just wouldn't put him in. He's on a great contract. He fits. He's a good shooter. Their solution to this kind of maybe undermanned team in terms of talent with Giannis this year has been he's surrounded by shooting for the first time in his career. He's around a ton of elite shooters, AJ Green, Rollins. I guess taking Bobby Portis away would maybe kind of hurt that, but I just think getting off Kuzma is worth Portis, and that's where I think we're at with Kyle Kuzma.
I understand. So what else you got, my friend?
So the second of my four is Toronto, who I don't like this as much as I like Trae Young, and it did make me somewhat intrigued that it came out from somewhere I don't remember. Apologies to not crediting this person, but Toronto apparently did at least call on Trae Young and kind of see what the deal was. And I just think that would have made some sense for that team. I think Ja makes way less sense. His just lack of outside shooting ability. And even if Trae hasn't been the most efficient outside shooter, he's at least a threat. People guard him. No one's going to guard Ja, and you're already a team maybe with some limited outside shooting. But anyway, similar to the Kuzma thing, I had Ja and Vince Williams going to Toronto because Vince Williams was kind of a fun story when the Memphis was in a bit of a holding pattern for a year due to their injuries a couple of years ago. But he has been terrible this year. He's 35% from the floor, 30% from three, and 20 minutes a game. And so I just kind of threw him in. I don't know that he holds a ton of value anymore, but I think that he's at least someone who can hypothetically take threes for Toronto. So maybe Toronto would want to get him thrown in there. And then going back to Memphis, I had Emmanuel Quickley, which I think similar to the Kuzma contract is just, he's a lot better player than Kuzma right now, but that's just he has a full year beyond Ja Morant even. So there's that. And then I had Ochai Agbaji, who I've always kind of maybe liked more of the idea of him than the reality of him.
And that's one player I'm getting a lot for the Lakers. And what I did was because that name started getting really suggested to me in the past couple of weeks. So I sat down and really looked at his season so far. And I think the words fallen off a cliff seem to apply to that because again, here's another player, Calif, that you can beat in a 3-point shooting contest right now. And he is not doing a whole lot else on the offensive end. So to anybody trying to pitch him to the Lakers, I would say not right now. Wait until he becomes a free agent. You want to pick him up on a minimum? Fine. But yeah, right now he does, like you said, he doesn't have much trade value because of how bad his season has gone.
I just think for me personally, I just kind of believe in his ability to eventually maybe turn into some type of guy you can maybe play as your ninth man. He just at Kansas, maybe I'm just looking too far back into his college career than what he's been for now. I think 3 or 4 years in the NBA, but I
think it's the Dalton Connect effect. It's just where possibly a change of scenery will improve his game once again. Just something is not clicking where he's at, whether it's his situation, dealing with the coaching staff or what have you. In the case of Connect, it was the trade that got rescinded and it's just messed with his head ever since. I think a change of scenery could help Abaji, but again, I would not put him, if I'm getting him in a trade, I'm asking for something along with it right now.
Yeah, and then the last part of that, so for going to Memphis, I had quickly Abaji, and then a top 10 protected 2030 first-round pick was kind of what I threw in there.
Yeah, because these top 8s are getting kind of nervous for some
this
season.
So, I mean, yeah, I just think if that's the price for Toronto, so again, I just think the Washington thing is going to be a good, maybe kind of framework for where some of these trades are going to go in this apron era. Like, it's going to be, I even tried to come up with a Brooklyn trade for him. I just couldn't really do it. Anything that I thought made any sense because salary-wise,
like a Minnesota or a Houston that needs a point guard, Caleb?
I really tried with Minnesota. And to get Ja, the way their contracts laid out, for them to get Ja, they have to trade Randall or Gobert. There's no other way. And I just think with where Ja's value is right now, like Gobert is a flawed player, but he's been good. He's a good player. Like he's been good this year, and he's really important to them.
He's got to stop those flagrant fouls.
He does. But and Randall signed Randall at $30 million a year. I honestly think is a pretty good deal. Now he's again imperfect, but I think giving up on Randall to trade for a $10 million more a year Ja, when we just saw Minnesota move off of Karl Towns because they kind of wanted to maybe duck a little bit of tax or just maybe stay out of aprons, not duck tax. I don't want to say that, but I just don't think that makes a ton of sense for them. So I tried because I think him and Anthony Edwards, while it might be a bit of a, I in my head for some reason, and I watch way too much basketball to still think this, but Anthony Edwards isn't a great shooter, and he is. He's a huge volume shooter. He's a good percentage three-point shooter. So maybe the spacing concern wouldn't be as big as I think, but I just think anytime you're basically signing, because I mean, I just think any trade that takes, this is what I said for Trae Young a few weeks ago. I think any trade that sends Gobert somewhere in exchange for kind of a no defense point guard, I just think it completely murders who that team wants to be and what makes them a dangerous playoff team. So I tried with Minnesota. I just couldn't get there. I just couldn't find anything that I thought made any sense. And then Houston.
Go ahead. I was going to say, I didn't know that. That's right. One more. Didn't you have one more or two more?
I have two more, but I'll go through. One will probably take a second just because it was the kind of crazy one I came up with.
All good.
And then the other one will be quick. But just about going back, you asked about Houston. I just don't think Houston is in the market of taking on another high salary player right now. They're going to get really expensive really fast, and Ja's still under contract for multiple years. And again, their biggest problem really is 3-point volume, in my opinion, at least. And that's not something that Ja Morant's going to help out with. So, okay, on to my next. I mean, I guess if you had anything to add, I guess I don't know what.
No, it's a good list so far, my friend. But again, just where do you put realistically when that call gets made? Hey, would you guys want Ja Morant? And if the number of millions on his contract per year is higher than the shooting percentage, that's a hard sell. That is a really hard sell for any team, whether they're a bad or good one right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's why I looked at Brooklyn because I just think that makes sense. But it was like the only contracts that were going to happen were Michael Porter, who just has way more value than Ja Morant right now, and then Nick Claxton. Why does Memphis want Nick? Like, why did there just wasn't really a deal there that made any sense. But third, this is the one that I don't think is going to happen, but I think it's fun. It accomplishes multiple goals, and it is theoretically possible. So 4-team trade here, 4-teamer. We got Brooklyn gets Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, a Golden State pick and swap, and a second rounder. Golden State gets Michael Porter Jr., who they're reported to be hot after. Memphis gets Jeremy Grant, Robert Williams, a 2029 Boston pick, and some cash considerations just to make the trade half possible. And Portland gets Ja Morant, Buddy Hield, and Haywood Highsmith. This is the trade this is what I was doing today on my Monday afternoon. The life of a sports journalist. It's coming up with this. So basically, this is about Michael Porter to Golden State and Ja to Portland. And I just think Portland should be in talent acquisition mode. And I think that there's still a part of me that wants to buy in on Ja, and Portland desperately needs ball handlers in general. Scoot Henderson has been underwhelming and unable to stay healthy. Drew Holiday's getting older every year, and he's still a really good player when he plays, but he's getting pretty old. And I think this theoretical lineup kind of they would have of Ja, Drew Holiday, Denny Avdia, who's going to come up in my All-Star thing later at least. And then Klingon's been awesome and honestly spaces the floor a bit more than anyone thought he was going to. And then insert player at the 4. And then on your bench, you'd still have Scoot Henderson, Shaden Sharp. And all you're doing to get Ja Morant in this case is getting off of Jeremy Grant's terrible contract. Trading Robert Williams, who I do think has resuscitated a little bit of value. And then you give up 1 first rounder and it's a Boston pick. So those are just, whatever. And
the thing is, Highsmith though is not healthy right now. Although he is supposedly coming back to the lineup here in the next 2-3 weeks, supposedly.
Well, it's always interesting to me with like he's on Brooklyn. Is he not healthy? Like CJ McCollum wasn't healthy, and then all of a sudden he ended up on it. He got to Atlanta and he played and was good yesterday against Golden State.
Well, if you actually, because he's also been someone that has been in a lot of mock trades recently, and so when you go look it up, if you typed in Highsmith's name right now, the first article you see is that the Brooklyn Nets, they're happy with Highsmith despite the fact he's been injured all season. I like that headline. It was just good. Yes, they're happy with him. Yeah. Is that why they're happy with him? Because he's been out all season.
Yeah, I mean, that was an interesting trade. I think those Miami guys get kind of a bit of a bump just naturally, like, oh, they're a role player from Miami. They're probably, and then, I think he's a useful player, but really this for Portland was just as much about Ja for me, not just as much, but them getting Buddy Hield and Haywood Highsmith. Their biggest problem is shooting. They just don't have a ton of 3-point shooting on their team. Buddy Hield obviously is a solution to that. Plus they just need guards. And Haywood Highsmith. I was
going to say for the Lakers, though, they should never look into a former Miami bench player unless his name is Clearware, because, Kendrick Nunn and Gabe Vincent really have not panned out.
Gabe Vincent's still hanging around. Around there in the Lakers 4,000 years later.
Exactly, my friend.
And then, I mean, Golden State getting Michael Porter, he's getting moved. He's apparently likely to get moved. I think it's Golden State or Detroit probably. It kind of seems like what the logical landing places for him. But I just like that one because, Memphis gets – I like Robert Williams. I think in a winning situation. He's always hurt. We know this about him. It's just kind of – comes with the territory. But I think a big rotation of him and Edey, like 2 oft-injured guys, but maybe you have 1 for every game or 1 for 70 of 82 games. And then they never play in the same game ever. You just strategically, block it. But
one appears, one disappears. There you go.
You have 1 at a time. But
Time Lord.
Yeah, exactly. And then but so I just am of the mind Portland should trade for a star, especially one of these buy low. I think Zion makes the most sense for them, to be totally honest. But I just think that where they're at, Avdia's great. He's super high usage. He right now, and maybe this will get better as he gets more used to this role. And he's been he's going to be on my All-Star. I think Avdia is awesome and having a great season, obviously, but he is super high turnovers. We'll see what happens. There is the thing about the playoffs in Portland. Maybe that's not their main concern because that's, they just want to get there first. But if he's your star, there's always these guys who are really dependent on fouls need to go prove that they can still get the whistles in the playoffs, which some people can't. Like SGA last year still got his whistle in the playoffs. And whatever you may think the reason for that is not always the case. Some guys it falls off when they maybe let you play a bit more physical. So I think Avdia just gets fouled a lot watching Portland, to be honest, but we'll see what happens there. But okay, so my last one, the one that I honestly think probably is the most likely of these, just because it just feels like a just great terms of the vibes these teams give off, not even a joke about the city or anything with Ja. Chicago gets Ja Morant and Memphis gets Zach Collins and Kobe White in a future first-round pick swap. It's 2 expiring contracts for Memphis. You get anything with the Bulls attached pick-wise is probably a positive. They're going to be in the top half of the first round. Chicago buys pretty low on a talent that is undeniable, and it really creates a lot of spacing concerns. But for the Bulls, they want to sell tickets. They want to have a decently high floor. I think that does this, to be totally honest. So that's the one I think of those 4 I proposed. I think Milwaukee and Chicago are two places that could buy on him, and I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think he'll go to Portland. That just doesn't really seem to be what they want to do. Plus, they have an ownership change coming soon. And Toronto, I don't really love him in Toronto. I just kind of wanted to make sure they're mentioned because I think in all these point guard, in the most only basketball sense possible, I just despise Emmanuel Quickley. I just hate him. And he was great on his rookie contract in New York when he's a fun guy who can come in and explode every once in a while. He's not on a rookie contract anymore. He's making $30 million a year. They gave him a 5-year contract for some reason. And he's just kind of underwhelming. He can fill it up. He's a good shooter. No doubt about any of that. But he's also just not really like a point guard to me. He's a guard who plays point guard. And that's kind of, we're getting into that generation with Luka and Shea and even Anthony Edwards now. But like, that's just kind of the case, but he's not good enough to kind of offset that because Luka's a great passer. SGA is really, he kind of gets steps better and better at that every season. Same with Anthony Edwards. Emmanuel Quickley has not taken any leaps in that department from my eye test, at least. So I don't know. I don't think he'll go to Toronto or Portland, but I thought they both should be mentioned. I think Chicago makes sense. Just in terms of Zach Collins and Kobe White are both expiring. And Zach Collins somehow makes $18 million a year in 2026. How that's physically possible is beyond my worldly comprehension, but that's true. And Kobe White's good. And he's just, I think, kind of on a weird team right now. So, yeah, I mean,
I've talked about him in a package to the Lakers, not including Williams. Don't give me Patrick Williams. Please don't give me Patrick Williams. Please don't give me Patrick Williams. But I have talked about him and Oyo DeSumo in a package for the Lakers. I thought that would be really a big boost to their guys coming off the bench. But yeah, those are some great suggestions. But again, Ja Morant is available now. But the thing is with Ja Morant, I think I'm going to see something like what we saw with Trey if he does get traded for one contract that's expiring, 1 or 2 contracts that still have something on the books, like what we saw with Trey Young, where again, I'm not going to give you everything, but I'll give you something you like, but you got to take something bad along with it in order to get off of what you're wanted to get off in this case with Ja Morant. That's what I see. I think is going to happen. His trade value is markedly down. I don't think that I think there's actually a possibility that he'll resurrect his career. There is that possibility, whether it's a change of scenery, whatnot. But I don't know. Is his head right? Will he have the motivation to do so? Is he just going to collect the cash and go home at the end of the day? What will happen? Will it be a crash and burn situation, or will it be a revival of Ja Morant before his full story on the NBA is done?
I don't know. We haven't really had one of these in a while, and it's kind of interesting for all their ties that it's him and Zion. Like these just really, from a basketball perspective, just kind of tragic careers that seem so promising that just kind of, I think everybody knows what the writing on the wall is, and no one really just wants to commit to it because they are so talented, both of them. And Zion's has been injury related, but he also just always is in some weird he just always has something going on off the court, whether it's, we don't even need to get into it. Probably not for the family-friendly Lakers fast break here. I don't think we need to get into Zion's off-court shenanigans, but
of course.
I would buy on Ja, and it would depend on the team I was. Like if Brooklyn could find some way to make it make sense, I think it makes sense there. They clearly want guards. They drafted 4,000 of them, and Yegor Jemin's doing some, like they're getting better. The rookies are getting better. We've kind of made fun of them all year, rightfully so on here, but they're eking their way to be better. But still, like Ja Morant's just tier. None of those guys are ever going to be as good as Ja Morant is right now at his diminished value, his likelihood. So I think they should do maybe a Wizards if they can with Trae Young. Chicago, I don't think it would work from a basketball perspective, but I think he's such a talent. I don't know. I would buy really low if I could, depending on the team I was. If I was a team planning on doing any type of winning, I'd stay away. Like that's why Houston to me, like I just don't like it. I just think they're really good as is. They're going through it historically. I think they're 23% from 3 over the last 5 games is what it is. And so they're just going through a weirdly bad shooting stretch. They're really good. San Antonio, no. OKC, no. Lakers, no. Knicks, no. Like you go through the real contenders, there's just not really any of them that make any sense for how he plays. So Yeah, but we can move on. I just didn't even realize how long I was going there. So apologize. That's not necessarily the most entertaining podcast content, but I just think it's interesting. I think like we love doing the fake trades here in the podcast world, and I think it was fun for me to sit on Spot Track for an hour or two earlier. So, yeah, that 4-team trade is my magnum opus right now. So we'll see.
And that 20% 3-point shooting percentage of Ja is also the big stickler right now. But we'll see what happens because, again, it looks like both parties may want to move on from each other like they did with Atlanta and Trae Young. So we'll see what happens with Ja Morant. But he is part, definitely, of one of our most disappointing players so far this season. Do you have a list, considering that you've got your trades as far as mock trades in order? Do you have a list of the most disappointing players? Because Ja Morant is at the top of it.
Yeah, so there's some pretty easy low hanging fruit with this. Really, I listed my all-star team, I listed my trades. I kind of just wanted to do this based off feel a little bit, just because it's not always statistical, as I'll go into with some of my guys. It just is kind of the feel of what's going on. And there's some low hanging fruit like LaMelo Ball, Ja Morant, Zion, the Trae Young, the typical suspects in this that are kind of the all trade team, no return all stars, but. For my first one, honestly, I'm gonna go a little bit probably unfair just due to the circumstances placed on him. And this was, to be completely frank, put in my head listening to Zach Lowe last week. I just think the whole vibe in Cleveland is so underwhelming, and they're turning it around slowly but surely, but not really. Like they lost to the Jazz today. Like they still have just as many bad games as good games. And when Evan Mobley really kind of broke out last year, it felt like maybe something was happening. Like this is going to be a guy who's going to be Defensive Player of the Year candidate every year. He's emerging offensively. His 3-point volume went way up. And he's just kind of the same player, except maybe a little worse than he was last season. The 3-point volume has reverted back to what it was, or it's a little bit less than it was last year. And he's just supposed to be like a superstar. He's not supposed to be he's not supposed to be Jaren Jackson. He's supposed to be a franchise altering, you can win a playoff round with this guy's one of your two best players. And they're going to win playoff rounds because they play in the East and they have so much talent, but it's not like we're going to have Evan Mobley out. And that archetype is so really pop. Like that's just kind of this evolutionary, this era exclusive archetype of player where it's Chet, and the obviously apex version of this is Wemby. And then Mobley, like these kind of guard skillish, lanky centers who maybe historically, like if they're down in the post against Shaq, whatever, that's a poor example because it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to get dominated by Shaq in the post. But Dwight Howard, even like, you're looking at like these guys maybe aren't for that, but they're for now. They're these kind of lanky elite shot blockers, A+ instincts, floor spacers. And Evan Mobley has been passed by both those guys in my mind. Like Chet Holmgren, partially because, or exclusively because Wemby's not going to play enough games, but he's probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year this year, at least where it stands right now. And I think Mobley maybe had a leg up there just because he won it last year, also due to Wemby injuries, and he just has been really underwhelming to me.
You mentioned Triple J, and I do definitely agree with you. He's one that stood out, and obviously not just because of the team, but his inability to take that next step that so many people were looking or thinking that he would take is definitely the key with Evan Mobley. Triple J is also someone, especially with that big fat contract that he just signed. This is a theme with some of the players that we see here. It's like they signed that fan. This is like eternal. This is like, something that's gone on for decades, especially in the NBA. They sign a fat contract because they have one good season or they have the couple good seasons, and that just falls off the cliff. Like whatever was in the ink just like allows them to just like never reach those heights again. But with Triple J, I mean, especially like we talked about for so many minutes with Ja Morant, you've got to step it up. If you see Ja Morant is not getting it done, you've got to step it up if you have those skills. And I've been talking in recent times about how when Memphis played the Lakers in a back-to-back game situation lately, he dominated the former number one pick in his own draft, DeAndre Ayton, and made him look silly in doing it. But when you look at overall, he just cruises. He just absolutely cruises. And this year he's fallen off to 18 points a game and 5 rebounds a game. And said, but for a guy you're paying well over $200 million for on this contract, it is not the value you're going to get. You have to step it up when you see your other players struggling, when you see your star player struggling. You have to step it up for your team, and he's just not doing that. I likened it to Rasheed Wallace and Robert Horry, where he's just cruising through the regular season. Those guys just cruise through the regular season in order to wait for the playoffs when they would step it up and grab those rings. He doesn't have those rings. That's the only problem here, is that he's not stepping up in the playoffs. If he did, and he has like 2 titles already, okay, I'd say, okay, that's just who he is. But right now we're getting a really poor facsimile, and Memphis is getting a really bad investment with both Ja Morant and Triple J.
I mean, he just has things that he does that he clearly just in his career is going to do that limit how good he can be to me. Like he just fouls a lot. He is just really bad at rebounding relative to his size. Like, this was a concern, reverting back to my Thunder coverage. This was a concern with Chet, his fake rookie, his second, whatever, the first year he played. He just wasn't a very good rebounder, and that's obvious. He has this really lanky frame. He's skinny. He is obviously an injury concern, but he's gotten better. Like, every year he comes back and he's a little bit better at rebounding. And now this year, like, especially when Hartenstein, like, he's just a pretty good secondary rebounding. Like, he's just a pretty good rebounder, really, which he should be. 7'1", 7'2". Jaren Jackson, 5 rebounds a game. He's 6'10". Like, what he's and plays down low and is a shot blocker. Like, there's no reason he shouldn't be at least 7-8 rebounds a game. And especially with Edey out of the lineup for most of the year. And he just isn't there. But yeah, I mean, he's just kind of in that weird zone where he's not like Ja or LaMelo or Trae Young, where I think he does play a winning brand of basketball. Truly, I do. But so, like, I just don't think any of those guys really play winning basketball right now. And so,
but he's also not aggressive. He doesn't seem like he wants the ball. He's just like, okay, she's like, cool, yeah, give me the ball when you get a chance. I might do something with it, might not, but if you don't, no worries. He just seems, like you said, along with the foul trouble, but it just seems very passive in wanting to be a better player.
Yeah, I mean, he's a weird one. He clearly has the talent, but the way he plays offensively is even kind of like, if he were to become available and say, you would think like talented 26, 27-year-old big, you would think, like, I don't know that they even have enough to get him.
Faster than most everybody else in the league for his size.
Yeah. You'd think like the Lakers should be all over that if he became available. And I'm sure maybe they'd sniff around, but he just, his offensive fit with Luka immediately like, he's going to rim roll. No.
Well, I mentioned, the Spurs thing. Yeah, his price tag is pretty high, but I mean, his skill set alongside Wemby, again, but I don't think you want to spend that kind of money for a guy who's just seems like he's okay with being just okay.
Yeah. So I kind of think my kind of idea here was we both do 3. I don't know if you have 3. I have 3.
Go for it, my friend. Finish up.
My second one, maybe some low-hanging fruit, but I do think it needs to be discussed because of how important he was supposed to be in the league, and that's Paolo Banchero.
Right on the money.
Yeah.
Hold on, that's another one you're taking off my list.
He does so many hard things so well. He is a 6'10", 6'11", mid-range specialist, can get to whatever shot he wants. He's huge. He's a solid playmaker. He should be better defensively than he is due to his just size and strength and bulky build, but he's okay defensively. A good rebounder for where he's at, especially in that particular situation. But the efficiency just has never gotten better. He's just so inefficient in a league that has never prioritized efficiency more than it does right now. You look at the best guys in the league, Jokic and Shea, I think, are pretty unanimously thought of as the 2 best players in the league right now. Giannis is somewhere in that top 4 along with Luka. Luka's the only one of those guys who is even like relatively inefficient, and Luka has his games. We all see it where he kind of is a bit inefficient, but he also has games where he can't miss, and that just hasn't really come along for Paulo. And when it does, it's not at a high enough volume. Like the games Luka is on, there's nothing like it. He makes in possible step back threes. He gets to the rim. When you are over aggressive, he goes and he throws lobs. Like he's a perfect offensive player when he's playing well. So that offsets a bit of his inefficiency to me. But the league's never been loved efficiency more. And Paulo's he plays like Carmelo Anthony. And that's great. And Carmelo's going to make the Hall of Fame. And he was one of the 10 best players in the league for a decade. But I don't think he would be necessarily a beloved figure in the way we view basketball now. He passes up threes to take contested twos. He's underwhelming defensively. He's a good rebounder, but not great, like I said earlier. And he's huge. He should be a really good rebounder, especially for as much as you want him to have the ball. And I don't know. I mean, I think everything that I have to say about Paulo has been said, so I don't want to dig too deep on him. But we just all, as an NBA community, expected more. This is supposed to be so many of these young superstars come to the West, whether it's Wemby or Dylan Harper, it's two Spurs, of course, or Anthony Edwards, whoever it may be. It seems like it's so filtered to the West. He finally seemed like a young up-and-coming Cooper Flagg. He felt like a young up-and-coming superstar that was in the East, and it just feels stagnant and uninspiring right now. And we'll see if he can turn a corner. I believe he can. He's still so young. But it's not been where it's supposed to be for an Orlando team that making that Desmond Bain trade, they clearly thought this was a team that could make a deep, maybe even finals run. And with him playing how he's played, they just can't.
No, I agree with you 100%. These are guys that were on my list as well. So who do you got, my friend? Who else you got?
So for my third and final one, now this one is not fair, but I want to show that I'm willing to discuss Jalen Williams has just not been good since he's come back. And it's very clearly, if you watch it, it's clearly related to his wrist. He's been really open talking about I can't play like I played before my wrist injury yet. Like it's going to take a year and a half, 2 years to get back to where he was before he got this really serious wrist injury. And he's had games where when the Thunder kind of shockingly beat Memphis a few days ago when the whole team was out and it was really Jalen Williams and AJ Mitchell. He was great. And he looked a lot like he looked last year. He got to his mid-range. He loves to kind of go in right and then go left and do this fadeaway lean from to his left that he just really has patented, and he was getting to it. And then he was good again yesterday against Miami when OKC really kind of looked like themselves for the first time here in a few weeks. But the three, he just is he seems a little reluctant to shoot. He's not been taking the open threes he would take willingly and often last year. The mid-range is not as automatic as it felt. He's still elite defensively, of course. He's so young, so athletic, huge wingspan. And I don't even think his averages are necessarily, they're down. I believe he was over 18 points a game last year. And as of before the last game, when I think he went over this, he was at 17 points a game. I think he's 17, 5 and 5. So this is a player that last year had 40 points in the NBA finals, looked like an emerging, is this going to be Scottie Pippen 2.0? And those weren't Thunder discussions. Scottie Pippen said that. That wasn't something that we as a fan base made up. And he just hasn't been there. And frankly, I think it's a little bit different because his is just so clearly to me watching it injury related. I mean, he's even talked about it. You go back and Jaylen Brown had the same injury 4 or 5 years ago, and he was talking about it. And he said for the first year, if it's going to be cold that day, he could tell because the stuff in his wrist would hurt if it was going to be cold out. It just is an underratedly severe injury he had. But then at the same time, I believe Brandon Miller might have had a very the same thing, and Brandon Miller's been awesome this year. So I don't want to attribute it all to that. Some of it I think is probably just trying to get accustomed to this team again that was playing so well, and Chet's had an offensive leap and has a bigger offensive role, and AJ Mitchell's been great. But I did think he needed to be discussed because this looked like it could be one of the defining players of the next 5-10 years. And he's really just not been very good this year since he's been back.
No, not at all, my friend. Hit it right on the money. I was just like, oh, there's another one off my list. There's another one. Great minds think alike.
I take everybody from you.
Oh, I'm going to add a couple in there, though.
Okay.
But Jalen Williams, I know as far as close to you. I wasn't going to go there because I know the wrist injury. I know what he's playing. It's clear that there's a situation. But some of the OKC Thunder, yes, they're having a sensational year. overall, but some of the OKC Thunder around Williams and SGA are not particularly lighting it up from deep. I'll just say that, because when they click, they're shooting at least at an average level. But yeah, with Dort, Caruso, some of the others, that are there, they've just not been able to go ahead and take that next step. Maybe it's a complacency thing. Maybe it's, you won the title and we're still cruising for the most part, early part of the season, problem. But Casey Wallace, as someone in particular, I think I want to point out, as far as, man, he was on everybody's hot list.
Mm-hmm.
And right now he's on everybody's not list. So, I think that's probably the case. But again, they have so much talent to draw from. When you have so much talent to draw from, they're able to still play at such a high level of defense. It doesn't matter. And that's how they're still winning games.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, when you kind of went into that, Casey Wallace could totally be on this list, and he'd be like a lesser known entity on here. But I thought he was great in the first game of the season against Houston. I was just like, I'm like, how are they going to pay it? Like, they're going to have to pay Casey Wallace like 25 minutes. Like, they're going to, and he's 7 points a game this year. He's honestly regressed offensively. And a lot of that's just, he's missing open shots that he can make and probably on average would make. And that's really the story of the Thunder right now. Like, yesterday against Miami, all of a sudden they looked like OKC again. Like, that Shea is getting whatever he wants. Jalen Williams is in the middle. Chet has been, we talk about kind of the guys who have maybe underwhelmed on OKC, and I do agree. There's been a couple, like Dort's just been, this is just Dort. He goes cold and then he goes hot. He does this every year. It feels like this has been an extreme example of it. But I mean, you guys had Caruso, like he's a fine shooter, but when he goes through a cold stretch, no one's shocked. Casey Wallace has been really disappointing because he was supposed to kind of emerge into the best shooter of those guys. But Chet Holmgren's been awesome. Like, he is on my all-star team. He's been awesome. He's really taken a leap, and he's gotten so much more confident with his three-point shot, which is so important to what OKC wants to do. And he's going to probably, if he stays healthy, he'll probably win Defensive Player of the Year. So it's been an interesting mix with OKC. But yeah, Kaysen and Jalen Williams, who are supposed to be two of kind of the core 5 or 6 of this net. Caruso's really good right now. Hartenstein's really good right now. But of like the future, like what's OKC going to look like in 5 years? Casey Wallace is supposed to just be like a locked and loaded member, featured, like really important part of that. He's just been really not very good this year.
I did want to mention Dyson Daniels, another case of signing the contract-itis, because he signed the contract and it's been itis. Calif, I think you are winning this 3-point shootout, because between Ja Morant, who else did we mention that was struggling? I know that we mentioned one more individual that was struggling. Oh, Agbaji, yep. And Dyson Daniels, who has a 3-point shooting percentage of 11.
Oh,
11.
Didn't know it was 11.
11. I just rechecked Basketball Reference. It's 11 right now, guys. That is how bad it is right now for Dyson Daniels. Of course, he's still got the steals, although it's actually over a steal down from last year's heights. So, maybe with the departure of Trae Young, that can light him up as far as a fire under there. So we'll see what happens with him. I did want to mention one more because, like I said, a lot of the possibilities, really the high level possibilities as far as concerned, as far as the really big names that are disappointing. I definitely want to go ahead and you and I both covered. But Golden State Warriors, Stephen Curry is having a fantastic season.
Yes.
Tell me someone else on that team who's having a fantastic season. I'd be hard pressed to. I mean, and the way Kerr is playing them, or not playing them, or playing them, or not playing them, or playing them, or not playing them. You talked about Buddy Hield. He's been benched, and then he comes off the bench. Then he's been benched, and he's got Brandon Podziemski. I mean, this kid is a yo-yo. Of course, some of it's deserved because they had such high hopes. They were clearly, using the wrestling vernacular, giving him the push in Golden State, wanting him to be the future after Curry left. But it's clear that's not the case right now. And he has been relegated to the bench. Kuminga has been Kuminga-fied once again by it's just again Golden State is above 500, but they're basically been around 500 the entire season. It's because however great Curry has been, and to a lesser extent Butler, everybody else, especially Draymond Green, that guy has been terrible on the offensive side of the ball, even more so than his normal substandard self. Yeah, it's just been a disappointment. Just think if they actually had a good, decent 3 or 4 other guy rotation now in Golden State, we would be talking about them in a second or third spot in the West right now, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Pat Spencer's been pretty good. Good little.
But then he gets benched.
Yeah, Kerr. We talked about the hot seat coaches a few weeks ago. I don't think he's going to get fired, but I don't think he's long for coaching, to be total. He says things you're just not supposed to say, and that's part of his deal. Like, he's just brutally honest with how he feels about stuff. But the whole way they've treated Kuminga is a flawed player who does not play how the Warriors want to play, but he's clearly talented, and he's had these outbursts of scoring and playing well in a situation where it's like Dalton Connect on steroids, because Dalton Connect, when he does play, he's just not that, he's not that good. Unfortunately, I'm a Tennessee fan. I wish he was better, but he just hasn't been that good. Kuminga has these moments when he's awesome, and he has his whole career, and they just don't like him. And then they didn't just let him leave, which, if you don't like the guy, just let him leave. You're going to try and trade him. What are you going to trade him for? Because you don't want to play him. None of it makes any sense. And he's now really just kind of gotten this rep as some like malcontent. Of course he's a malcontent. He would be averaging 20 points a game if he was on one of these bad teams. And I don't think that Jonathan Kuminga is a perfect player. I think he's been horribly miscast, horribly misused, and honestly, for as much as you can from an NBA standpoint, horribly mistreated by this organization. This is a talented guy who is, I hope, going to end up somewhere at the deadline that wants to buy low, like an even lesser version of a Trae Young situation, or maybe a salary for Brooklyn and a Michael Porter trade, whatever it may be. I just want him to go somewhere and be able to play, which should not be a high bar to clear for the 7th pick, who has displayed talent despite being given no opportunity to really show it. He still has. I think he's going to go somewhere and make something of himself, to be totally honest. And I mean, yeah, Draymond's getting old. Like, him and Butler should be kind of on the downturn. They're getting old. The fact Curry is as good as he is just a testament to what he's one of the, whatever you want to say, best players of all time. Like, I don't know. They are just a disappointment. They're probably the most disappointing team in general now that the Clippers have been kind of hot here for a few weeks. Because there's people who they had that great stretch after they got Jimmy Butler last year where they were awesome in the regular season, and then Steph gets hurt in the second round of the playoffs. Who knows what could, but yeah, I mean, this team, I watched them play Atlanta last night, and they just looked they just didn't look they're just not as good as Atlanta. And Atlanta is not they're pretty good. They're not a great team, and they're in the East. And if Golden State wants to even take a game off of one of these top 4 of OKC, Denver, Houston, San Antonio, they have to be able to hang with Atlanta in a regular season. Like, they're just not very good right now, to me.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And again, when you go through this, there are some players with some serious contracts that are really disappointing right now. So buyer beware, especially when it concerns Morant out there. Again, if I'm getting that call from Memphis, I'm saying, what else are you going to give me? I want picks. I want picks. You're going to saddle me with this. I want picks. I'll give you back something that you want. I'll give you back something you desire, but you got to give me some picks going forward. And I'll just leave it at that. But before we head on out, talking about expansion real quick, and then we'll get into some all-star balloting and all-star teams as far as picking. Expansion, I know that we wanted to cover it during the NBA Cup, but at the final of the NBA Cup here in Vegas, Adam Silver did discuss the possibility and said something would be finalized this year, one way or the other. I don't know what that was, because I don't want to presume like, oh yeah, that's just about, that's guaranteeing an expansion. No, I don't want to curse it. I don't want to do anything on that. Vegas is a great community. I want to be able to travel through it safely. So I know that there's a lot of angst among people out there that want to see a new team, not a team from another. Although I do agree with Joe, one of my co-hosts, Joe Soro. He thinks that some of the bad teams, a couple of the lesser, like New Orleans, Charlotte, whatnot, those teams should be moved instead to Seattle, Las Vegas. Financially, I would say that's the better option, but I don't think that'll fly. Las Vegas does better with their own homegrown team. I think it just connects better with the community, like it did with the Golden Knights here in hockey. But Seattle's no question. Seattle is first and foremost, Seattle. But as this league gets larger, maybe we should turn the attention to some places overseas if we can actually make this work.
Yeah, I mean, it's not connected to the NBA, but there's been a ton of talk from Silver and others about this NBA Europe thing that I don't think anybody really gets exactly what it would be right now. They'd like play EuroLeague teams, but they're not in the EuroLeague. It's a pretty complicated thing and then there was like, well, they're going to play. They want to have the teams go over there and play. It's just not really possible with how busy the NBA schedule is to have teams go play in Europe with any frequency. So I don't know. I mean, I'm so in favor of Seattle getting a team. I'm just not to disparage your city by any means. I just am not a huge Vegas NBA team guy. I just don't, I don't know. Like I'm not against it by any means. I think it could. Obviously, like there's been talk about it for years. If they almost seem more likely if there was going to be one that got a team, I think it's more likely that Vegas would get one.
I can just tell you firsthand. I mean, even though half the stadium, Allegiant Stadium, is taken up by the other team, the Raiders still draw well here. The baseball team that we don't even want, I'm going to tell you, is going to do the same thing. It's going to put 20 to 35,000 people in the seats there. Now, mind you, that'll be from the other team, but they will fill the seats. But the Golden Knights have really been a draw. They are still one of the biggest draws in the NHL. They offer I think the highest ticket prices right now currently, or one of them, and they still, I don't want to say they sell out, but they draw extremely well throughout the season. And I think that's what the NBA looks at as far as that possibility, and a willingness to build another arena, even though we don't need it, is still on the table if that happens.
Yeah. I mean, I just think I obviously cover the Thunder. I root for the Thunder. I do understand their fan base in Seattle maybe being a little bit miffed at the Thunder's existence also. I think Seattle deserves another team. It's been a huge NBA market in the past that really loved their team, and they just kind of got it taken away. And it was really more on the owners than the whatever. It doesn't matter. But I think Seattle deserves a team. Vegas, I'm not opposed to it. I think Seattle should be the priority.
Oh, Seattle should be the priority. I'm from Vegas, and I will tell you, Seattle, after what happened, should be the priority. And I know you're a big OKC follower, but even you got to admit, and I've got to admit, Seattle should be the priority first and foremost. I'm not going to ever argue with anybody. I'm just saying, after that, if you have a team in mind, logistically, all signs point to, if anything, as far as not for sure, because nothing's for sure in life, but a really strong indication that a team could work in Las Vegas if it's done properly.
So I just have an interesting. So those are the two that everyone said for years. It's Seattle and Vegas. It's Seattle and Vegas. If there was going to be another two cities, I think for me, Kansas City, it has to be one of them. They've been an NBA market before. The Chiefs fans are great. I mean, that's also because they're good, but whatever. Like, they sell out the stadium. Kansas basketball is huge right down the road. Like, I think Kansas City should have a team. I struggle to maybe find another market other than that third one. I think Kansas City should be third on that list.
Domestically, though, yeah, it's hard. But I could say that from the G League standpoint, Mexico City. Again, there is some logistical problems, the thin air, things like that, but they do play in Denver. So I think that Mexico City you should look at, but London as well. if you really want to invest in it, I understand the EuroLeague, but as travel gets more, how shall I say this, technologically advanced, and we're able to shorten that window of travel time. I follow the WWE and wrestling as far as the concern, and I see what the travel time is for them hopping from Europe to from New York to say and back and forth and whatnot. It can be done. A question is they will, but I know London would absolutely embrace an expansion team. Would absolutely expect. I mean, the way they've embraced football, American football, just speaks to what they should be thinking about.
I'm not against the idea. I just think that's a given. Like, if you're going to go to London, I think you have to shorten the schedule. I think you have to give more time for travel. I think you have to take some games off. I think because like I also follow WWE and like they'll go over there and they have their Europe tours where they're over there. But in terms of flying back and forth, in terms of flying back and forth, like say a guy's going to be on Raw and SmackDown, like there's still that 4-day. Maybe he comes back, he's on a house show on Thursday or whatever. Like he has a multi-day thing in the NBA. With the 82 game schedule, it's just not really, unless you want to make the season even like longer in terms of length, which I don't feel like they would probably want to do in terms of like adding weeks to it.
That's the hard part though, is finding the logistics on that, and then reducing is never a question because the
owners
the dollars involved.
I mean, and that's what it would be interesting. Like, are the owners going to sign it? Because it would be an interesting trade-off. Is it going to be worth all the extra, or I think that'd be a lot of extra money in travel every year because they'd be in, I guess, they're in the East, I guess. Like, I don't, I mean,
yeah, I guess.
And then
I'm just throwing out there, but there will be a point in time where travel becomes easy enough. It will be a stronger consideration. I don't think now, but 2035, I think there might be a strong possibility of that happening because London would embrace it, and you would have a lot of newfound NBA fans there. Absolutely, indeed. So.
Yeah, I agree. I just, as my Midwestern roots, I just want to give Kansas City. I just think they should be considered for a team. I just do. I don't.
They could always have the Kings back.
They can't have. They should have the Kings. The Sacramento going to care? I don't. They're probably going to be glad when the Kings leave.
Well, light that beam. There you go. Beam it over. But again, the Kansas City would probably say, "Do we have to have the ownership and front office? Can we just leave them back in Sacramento?"
Yeah, Clark. Yeah,
exactly. But once again, it is Calif Poncy. Truly appreciate you joining us, Calif. But before we head on out, I guess it's something cheery. When it considers the All-Star teams, but as you know, I'm kind of allergic to the All-Star game experience now. I actually shut down the channel for a few days and I could just relax or go on vacation with the family or something during that point in time because the All-Star game absolutely sucks. And I'm not afraid to admit it. And this format with the Americans and the foreign formats is not going to make it look any prettier because I posted in the private chat because you want to do the 16 Americans any way you slice it, go for it. But I would throw back at you the 8 foreign players I've got in that private chat right there. Luka, Giannis, Nikola, SGA, Victor, Denny, Lowry, and Josh Giddey. That's my 8 right there because we talked about 8 foreign players. Game over. I'll just leave it at that, my friend.
Yeah, that's what's going to be interesting is the foreign team. The 5 best players in the NBA right now are probably all foreign. So that kind of makes it interesting when it's one 8-man foreign team. But so mine, I'll go with my 6. I'll go with my 8 foreigners first. I had Shea, Jokic, Wemby, Luka, Giannis, Denny, Laurie. We had 7 the same. And then I had Şengün instead of Josh Giddey.
I was thinking about Şengün really hard, but I think that conversation earlier about how Şengün started out with a hot house of fire and it's kind of faded a little bit. But I'm assuming that one of the players would be, the old All-Star injury deal, so you could bring him on as replacements. That happens seemingly every year. So again,
I mean, the foreigners were really. The international players were really easy. They're really. This was just a bit of a platform to talk about Denny. I mean, Denny Avdia has been awesome, and he hurt his back the other day. I hope he's all right. Thiago Splitter after the game said he didn't feel great about it. I think it was some quote he had. He just kind of had a weird non-contact back injury. I hadn't really seen anything like that in a while. So especially from someone who's like 24. So I hope Denny's okay and able to play because he definitely deserves it. He's been one of the best stories. Portland is 500 and they've been hurt all year, and it's basically solely on his back. And then Markkanen was my last one in. I had Sengun at 6. I had Markkanen at 8 just because Utah – they're Utah. They're Utah in the 2020s. Like they just are – they've really – he's great, and I wish he'd get traded, but they're gonna age it, and they're gonna ask for way too much, and he's just kind of gonna be there.
But he's playing so well right now.
He is.
Despite their record, I think you have to at least acknowledge him. Maybe you put him ahead of, maybe you put Sengun ahead of him, but again, you have to acknowledge how good Lowry. And credit to Mark, one of my Australian followers on this show, and he's been on the show many times already. Josh Giddey, he's a huge Josh Giddey supporter, and his faith in Josh Giddey has paid off, Calif, which you know also well from his turbulent time in OKC.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really just as someone who I actually that was the year before I started covering. I actually never had a chance to meet or talk to Josh Giddey, but everything I always heard of him, he always seemed like such a good, nice guy, kid, whatever you want to say, and he had his weird off-court thing again, but like but it also that just was such a weird situation. I don't even know how I want to like use it to be a character judge of him. Like it was so odd. And so I think what you said about Sengun and kind of falling off is how I feel about Giddey, where he was on fire for the first month and the Bulls were great, and then since then he's now been hurt. Like he's just not been near as good. And Sengun, I think, has really emerged into kind of one of the, I think, 15, 20 best players in the league this season. So I chose to kind of also just reward the team record a little bit, like the way it works historically with all-stars. Like if you're for a certain level of team, you deserve 2 players, whatever. Kevin Durant's obviously in on my American team. So, so my American team, I kind of had it in order, not necessarily like in crazy order, but I had Steph Curry, Jaylen Brown, Anthony Edwards, Cade Cunningham, Tyrese Maxey, Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, Jalen Johnson, 7 and 8, KD at 9, Scotty Barnes at 10, probably a little high. I should probably have him lower. Jamal Murray at 11, Devin Booker at 12, Chet Holmgren at 13, Kawhi at 14, Jalen Duren at 15. And then I thought this last spot was honestly pretty interesting. That's the one that I kind of had the most trouble finding, like someone who should definitely be in. I really think those probably 14 of 16 or 15 of 16 really were pretty easy for me. Like I just looked at it and thought they were the best players and they should be in. But I went ahead and kind of due to that team structure, I gave Stephon Castle the last all-star spot for the Americans.
Really? No, I mean, based on record, I can see that. And he's had a really good season and really improved one. And in the time that Wemby's out, he's really stepped up. So I'm not going to argue with you. That NBA Cup performance overall for him against the Lakers and how he really propelled that team in Wemby's absence, obviously would give him a clear consideration.
Yeah, I mean, the other candidates for that spot really were the 2 Lakers. It was Reeves and LeBron. Those were kind of the ones who was like, am I going to put him in? But LeBron just hasn't played near enough. And
LeBron will probably get it in because of most favored nation status because he's 23. I mean, they're putting a patch on him for tonight's game, for instance. And Austin has been out. That month-long absence for Austin probably would not have him on the team. But he could still get paid quite a bit with a strong finish. So we'll wait and see because obviously a lot of money and a lot of decision-making is riding upon it. So, yes, we know that all too much right here in Lakertown. But great picks, my friend. I'm not going to argue with that. But, yeah, I still think the international team would, if it was a serious, absolutely serious matchup against whatever the Americans put right now, that would be really hard to go up against Luka, Jokic, Giannis, SGA, Victor, Dedion.
It's the best team. The three bench players don't even matter. They have the 5 best players in the NBA are their 5 starters. It's just how
That's crazy.
And it makes somewhat sense as a team. Luka, Shea, guards, Giannis. I mean, it's the best team.
I can see David Stern rising from the depths just to say, you know what, I was right for looking into expanding this product and marketing it throughout the world. Because look at the results. Look at a lot of his efforts in those 80s and 90s. Yes, there were international players back then, and I get that. I understand that. But really marketing it around the world has helped facilitate this growth of international basketball. I really think, in my opinion. Anyways.
I mean, I think one of the most underrated, I think if you know, but I just wonder how many people do. One of the more underrated things that was so important to where basketball is today was just how important the Dream Team was. They just really, and now, I mean, it's pretty inarguable that the 4 best players in the world are all foreign. Like, I think that 4 of Jokic, Shea, Giannis, Luka, and then, I mean, Wemby's clearly coming. If he's not already 5th, he's going to be like, if you want to have Anthony Edwards or whoever over him, I guess you can, but he's clearly coming for that. So yeah, I don't know. I think, I mean, I'm just not quite as jaded about it as you are. I'm going to give it like a shot. I don't think it'll work. Like if I had to bet, I don't think it's going to work or like make it more interesting, but I mean, they're clearly kind of maybe a little bit not in the same way going after that thing, the 4 Nations thing that hockey did that worked so well last year that like I watched hockey. I never watched hockey and I watched the final with the US in it. So I think that's kind of what they're trying to do. They're trying to maybe play at people's nationalism here to make anyone care about the All-Star game in 2026. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting because it feels a little like the generation I grew up watching of Durant and LeBron and Hart, like they just are kind of such a weird, like that's really the only generation in NBA history that requests trades all the time. They leave teams. And that was the generation that really devalued the All-Star game. And we'll see. I think this new generation, but then at the same time, I say that, and then like Anthony Edwards literally had the All-Star game where he's like, I'm just going to shoot with my left hand the whole weekend, like 2 years. And it's like, okay, man, like this is what we're doing, I guess.
And I come up from the 80s and 90s where just they would be at each other tooth and nail. I mean, in all the sports, but as the contracts started rising, and just this is not just in basketball, in football for the All-Pro, for Major League Baseball and the All-Star team, those contracts got larger. Then it just becomes, you got to play it safe because you don't want to be that guy that tears an Achilles in the middle of an exhibition game. Essentially, is what it is. So
I mean, I don't know why the NBA, and I kind of get it because it's been so lopsided, but I don't know why the NBA is so averse to kind of copying baseball and having the winner of the All-Star make it matter. Like, of course, the younger the generation, the more there's just an awareness of like, this doesn't matter. Why am I trying? Like, it's just kind of a younger I'm young. I definitely feel that way a lot of the time. Like so I mean, why should they? There's no incentive. Like there's none of, if you're an All-Star, unless you're like in your rookie contract, which when SGA was a first-time All-Star the other year, he was clearly one of the 10 best players in the league at that point. He had ascended, and he played like 9 minutes because they just kind of play this established guys when it was the conference model. And the guys so therefore, like the young players who would really try hard in the All-Star game, unless they're like generational talents, are not really going to play that much. And even if there's some financial incentive, like Steph Curry and Kevin Durant and Jokic, they don't need $1 million. Like they're fine. Like it's like a drop of sweat to them. Like, I would rather not get hurt and make $500,000. Like it doesn't matter. So I don't know. I wonder if maybe I've said that to some people I know before, and they don't necessarily agree with me that maybe they should do the MLB thing where the winner of the All-Star game conference wise gets home court advantage in the finals. But I honestly am fine with what they're doing just because I think anything is worth a try because the weekend's such a disaster. Like it's like every year it gets all hyped up because football's over by that point and the trade deadline's, it's really like the NBA is the lone thing on for a few weeks and everyone tunes in and everyone gets excited and then the product's terrible every year and it becomes it's a laughing stock. No one tries in the All-Star game. You have G League players winning the dunk contest. Like the best thing is the 3-point contest. That's the best event of the weekend every year. And that's great, obviously. But like what are they going to do when Steph Curry retires? And all of a sudden it's like, well, I guess Jamal Murray's going to win the 3 points. Like, who really cares? Like, it's not, you don't have no one cares. So, I don't know. I'm willing to hear them out on just trying stuff because it's such a disaster, but I don't think this is the solution personally either.
So with that, it's another great episode of NBA Observations. Just absolutely just fantastic insight once again you bring to the show, Caleb. And I'm so blessed again that we do this on a weekly basis. Truly appreciate it. But before we head it out, what's the update on what you're working on? Either with, of course, what you're doing with the Suave report, or anything else that you got cooking right now for you.
I'm starting to collect for Chet Holmgren's story, and I said that'd be out faster than it was. I just want to have it just kind of coincided with the Thunder's worst point of the season. It didn't feel like a great point to put out like a big puff piece about one of their players. So I'm collecting on that. I'm waiting to maybe let him have a few media availabilities and see what he says, so I can maybe get some insight of people having similar thoughts to me. But so there'll be something on Chet soon, because I do think he was an easy all-star for me, and there's been some pushback on that. Like the leagues are so deep right now, but if there's 16 American players, he's one of the 16 best American players in the league. Like he's elite defensively. He was doing stuff with this. No one's going to care about this. It's not a Thunder fan, but like he was like his biggest offensive weakness was he's always been a pretty good shooter, but he's so reluctant. Like he just always slowly. And last night, OKC played Miami, and he got one and kind of jab stepped, I think Andrew Wiggins or Bam maybe, and then realized like, oh, I'm just taller. I can just shoot over this guy, and just drained a three and that's the step for Chet to become like a really special player, if he can figure out that part of his game. So he's starting to take some real leaps. If he can stay healthy, I've never known quite how to feel about Chet. I've always thought Jalen Williams, ever since they're both the first year they both played, was going to end up being the second best player of OKC's potential dynasty, whatever you want to say about him. But he's really taken some leaps this year. So I want to emphasize him. And then with New Century Press for that market, I'm talking to some coaches at Iowa State here soon, because they just had a huge coaching change. So if anyone here, any Cyclones in the chat, you can look out for some stuff on their safeties coach here soon, because he's from Rock Rapids, Iowa, where my paper's at. So there'll be that. But yeah, I mean, that Chet thing will be coming before too long, before All-Star for sure. Hopefully before that. I just want to have plenty of stuff to work with. And other than that, yeah, I mean, that's currently what I'm working on, just getting through this busy high school sports season. And I'll have more time for NBA stuff, to write NBA stuff for sure come the spring. So exciting time. We're getting to kind of the dregs of the NBA season here, the dregs of the NBA season here. But, chugging along.
But don't forget to go ahead and check out what Calif is doing today at the New Century Press, and when his latest article drops on the Suave Report. Well, Calif, great to have you back, my friend. Looking forward to a conversation next week. You picked some amazing topics to work off of, and it was just great. Any last thoughts before we head on out?
I don't think so. I'm gonna be interested to see how fast this Ja Morant thing happens. Like when we record a week from now, is he gonna be on a new team, or is he still gonna be there? Because that Trae Young thing just kind of, there was no market, just like there's no market for Ja. They found the one team that wanted him, and then it kind of accelerated really quickly. So I wonder if it'll be a similar situation, or if we're gonna kind of have to talk about this Ja thing over and over again. I hope he just gets traded so we can get it over with.
And do we have to have a conversation at some point in time on tanking?
That would be a fun conversation, because I am relatively pro-tank, to be honest.
There you go. I will have to have it indeed. So we'll go ahead and set that up. Maybe not this week, but later on, to see how this tanking season is doing. Because I know some shows are already doing it now. I'm like, let's wait and see how this all pans itself out. February, March, going to get interesting with the tanks indeed.
Oh,
but Calif, great to have you back. Always providing some great NBA observations on our show, NBA Observations, and also as well, of course, brought to you from the Lakers Fast Break Podcast. Please like and subscribe. You will get the latest notifications. You'll get this first if you're a member, $2.99 a month for that. But even if not, we do post this to everyone out there as far as the NBA Observations. So looking forward to hearing what you have to say because we always enjoy what you say about us, what you say about our comments, what you say about the NBA, because we also like to hear your NBA observations as well. So for Calif Poncy, it is Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back next time on another edition of NBA Observations right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.